Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into the 2025-2026 Winter Outlook analysis. We're looking at U.S. snowfall probability and the climate drivers behind it all. Our mission is to pull out the strategic insights from what sounds like a really volatile forecast. The analysis actually calls it a season of dynamic conflict. And it seems like the main signal, La Nina, is pretty marginal, right? Only a 54% chance of even sticking around through the core winter months. So if that big driver, ENSO, is kind of weak, what else is steering the ship?
Yeah, that's really the crux of it for you. When that primary signal is weak, things like the NAO, the MJO, these more regional, shorter-term patterns, they suddenly get a lot more say. What's fascinating here is you're basically guaranteed high variability within the season. It's not going to be a steady, classic kind of winter. Expect, weather whiplash.
Whiplash driven by what mainly? You mentioned other factors.
Right, largely driven by a persistent negative Pacific Decadal Oscillation, the PDO, and also the lurking risk of a sudden stratospheric warming event, the SSW.
Okay, wait, before we jump into the stratosphere stuff, can you quickly break down that PDO for the listener? What is it, and why is this negative phase more reliable than La Nina right now?
Sure. Think of the PDO as ENSO's slower cousin. It operates on decades, like 20 to 30 years. It's about long-term sea surface temperature patterns in the North Pacific. A negative PDO means cooler waters dominate up there. And that pattern is sort of the bedrock for this forecast because it reliably directs energy and moisture into the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, so it's the stabilizing element in an otherwise shaky setup.
Exactly. It's pretty much the only factor giving us some consistent signal right now.
Okay, so let's unpack this volatility versus stability. If things are generally unstable, where is the highest confidence? The source points to the northern tier.
That's right. Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. That region has the highest probability for sustained above-average snowfall.
And that's directly because of this negative PDO influence.
Yeah, it creates this sort of geographical sweet spot for the jet stream. The PDO keeps aiming moisture right there.
But then you shift south and east, and things get messy.
That's where you hit the volatility zone.
Yeah.
The central U.S., the Ohio Valley, they're looking like a winter battle zone.
A battle zone meaning?
Meaning really rapid, sharp temperature swings, yet Arctic air clashing hard with Gulf moisture pulsing north. Lots of back and forth.
Okay, let's talk timing then. The analysis mentions a bookend winter for the east and central U.S. What does that actually mean for people experiencing it?
It suggests the action is front-loaded and potentially back-loaded. Phase 1 is likely a strong start in December. That early momentum comes from the La Nina likelihood being a bit higher. Remember, 71% in the Oknovdikik period.
And that translates to?
Immediately to robust lake effect snow downwind of the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
The forecast specifically mentions Buffalo, New York, potentially 90, 100 inches.
Wow, okay. That's a serious start to the season for them.
It is a big early commitment.
But then there's this paradox for the Northeast later on. Elevated precipitation overall, but maybe not record snow totals. The risk shifts.
Exactly. They're likely to see above-average precipitation overall, but the core winter temperatures might run a bit warmer than historical deep cold. So you get more mixed events, rain, sleet, freezing rain, snow, all jumbled together. It limits the huge snow totals, but increases the risk from ice accumulation.
So less about massive snow drifts and more about power lines and icy roads.
Precisely. The operational challenge shifts. It's about managing widespread ice and grid stress, not just pushing powder.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, as you mentioned earlier. Phase 3, the Deep South threat, you said this is tied to the stratosphere, the QBO and SSW events.
Yes, this is a critical risk factor, even if it's lower probability. It's connected to the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation, which is about stratospheric winds near the equator cycling east or west. This year favors an easterly QBO, which statistically increases the chances of a sudden stratospheric warming in SSW.
And an SSW is when the polar vortex basically breaks down.
Sort of, yeah. Think of it like the circulation high up, maybe 10 miles above the North Pole, getting massively disrupted, warming rapidly. This disruption can dislodge the really frigid Arctic air, sending it plunging south. It's like pulling the plug on the Arctic freezer.
So the QBO cycle just gives it a nudge, statistically increasing the odds of that plug being pulled.
That's a good way to think about it, yes.
But it's still a low probability event for places like Texas or the Gulf Coast to get significant winter weather. Why focus on it so much?
Because the impact, if it happens, is potentially catastrophic. We're talking about a major, severe cold air outbreak, likely timed for late January or early February based on these dynamics. This poses a specific very high impact risk of ice and snow penetrating unusually far south, places that just aren't equipped.
So infrastructure planners there need to think less about average conditions and more about handling a short, sharp, severe event.
Exactly. The focus has to be on event management for that specific period, because while brief, it could be devastating.
Okay, so summing this up for you listening, a truly snowy season, in the consistent sense, looks pretty localized this year to that northern tier thanks to the PDO. Everywhere else seems to face more of a whiplash season. High-impact events, but maybe shorter duration, concentrated early and potentially late.
That captures it well. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, there's a major implication we haven't stressed enough. The general lack of a strong moisture feed from the southern Pacific, which you'd often see in some La Nina patterns, is very concerning. This forecast strongly suggests that drought conditions across Southern California, the Southwest, and the Southern Rockies are likely to get significantly worse, intensifying right through winter into 2026.
So only brief, limited moisture chances maybe in January.
That seems to be the main window, and likely not enough to reverse the trend. The drought issue just keeps accelerating.